добрый день, уважаемые зрители. Сейчас
Hello, everyone. Hello, dear
о
audience.
том, как же
And
все-таки
now we will speak
контролировать расследование
about the automation of
которые, может быть,
different comprehensive processes. How do we react
пока еще
to
именно
fraudulent activity? And I think it's very important
и может
when we speaking about the
искусственный
human
интеллект.
analysis.
Мы
And can artificial intelligence replace
у нас в
a
гостях
human? We will
Елена
have
Беляева,
a
руководитель
so-called Hollywood with
компании
Eva.
Security
We
Vision.
have Eva Beleva from Security Vision.
Вот.
Eva,
И
welcome.
хотелось бы продолжить нашу
And
тему. Вот поможет ли
to
полностью
go deeper on
процессов и
the
действий
full
живого
automation
человека
be
и
able to replace a
Здесь
human being, a
вопрос такой
specialist, an
несколько
analyst?
потому что мы должны понимать,
Actually, it's a very tricky question because we should understand what exactly are we talking about, what kind of automation we're speaking about. And currently, among the vendors, among the customers which select their solutions, we see a very popular decision, which is ecosystem. And both Russian vendors and foreign vendors want to create their own defensive systems to cover basically
покрыть
the whole perimeter, everything that can be exploited in the infrastructure,
должен быть использован
how they can react and respond
не у
for
многих,
multiple tools for analysts. And actually,
практически ни у кого этого
in
не получилось,
basically
потому что заказчики,
nobody
они
is successful, at least for now,
что-то
because the customers and vendors continue to work for something multi-vendor approach instead of single vendor approach, because they want to see what kind of best practices exist on the market.
эта история
And
принимает еще один
in
поворот.
reality,
Нам
it
недостаточно только
can have even a pivotal
вендорской какой-то истории.
turn. Sometimes it's not enough to have
Работала вот и находясь на текущем месте работы, и на всех предыдущих.
sometimes it's not to have this experience. I worked with multiple teams and they created their own SOC
Действительно удобно
from
работать.
what
Это
they
какие-то
are used to work with. They used open source solutions, something they created themselves, some create their own APIs
в итоге,
for them to react and respond. And if we take a look at the solutions and how they are tuned 2 and 5 years after, they are so different from the box which is now given us to
на данном этапе
by the vendor, by the
все-таки заложить прям
producer, by the manufacturer, because currently it's not possible to put inside of it all that. So my point is not everything can be automated. Sometimes you actually have to think,
нельзя обойтись без
and
квалифицированного
sometimes you
специалиста.
have to use your head,
Сам знать, в
and
какой
you have to use
поймет,
an expert. They would know what to do. They will look for
инфраструктуре, как с этим работать.
down fraudulent activity and how to counteract it.
можно
Okay, and how can we
в автоматизации
use this in
и какие-то такие
artificial intelligence in this automation process? Maybe some other promising technologies.
как компании
Which way do you go as a company?
есть в этом
Maybe you have some new features in this area.
Интересных направлений, где
We actually have two interesting areas where we use AI even now. One of them,
популярная в ней
I think, is quite popular.
вендоры это
Many vendors took part in it. It's anomaly analysis, it's behavioral analysis. And actually, these models demonstrated really good results, and it's easier to work them because you can set the parameters, you can basically ask a question, and the system can give you an answer. For example, for some peak performance, for some changes in the behavior of the user based on statistics and based on machine learning, algorithm, and data. Maybe the increased amount of traffic or
подключение новых хостов, новых людей.
new hosts, new users, some anomalies would be detected.
Система. Она это
The
подсветит,
system
но она это
notice it
подсветит, как сработает.
and it will highlight it.
Кажется, что
It will tell you, okay, so something happens here.
человеку придется
And then the operator, the expert will
общаться с
find
пользователем,
themselves if
потому что,
this
например,
anomaly is
хорошо, здорово,
fraudulent or not.
новый сегмент с
Okay, we have
Фейсбуком, у вас новый
many new users, but maybe that's because we have a new department in the company. And our experts started to talk with them because this is a part of his job now. So they have to teach this AI
который называется
on a
аномалия.
continuous basis. And that's why we added this anomaly detection system.
Этих разных
I think about 10 different models. It uses 10 different models, and it takes into account multiple metrics in this floating window.
портрет человека.
It has a portrait, it has basically some
Это совместное какая-то их связка. То есть человек, например, пентестер на своих хостах постоянно может выполнять какие-то интересные действия, похожие на действия злоумышленника. И задача была как раз в том, чтобы вот эти вот профили того, что хорошо, и того, что плохо, между собой не путать и как-то совместить. А есть еще история, которая не совсем сейчас понятна и не совсем сейчас можно дать какой-то конкретный ответ, когда мы говорим о том, чтобы искусственный интеллект реагировал на какие-то инциденты. Потому что сейчас вот и в медиа, и какие-то и остальные специалисты, эксперты по информационной безопасности, они говорят, например, о применении чат-GPT в реагировании. Мы добавили эту фичу в наш SAR, но чисто чтобы по фану показать.
То есть, погоди,
Да.
реагирование, за вас искусственный интеллект проводит реагирование,
Он
правильно?
не проводит реагирование, потому что мы ему недостаточно доверяем.
Ну, понятно, вы права как бы обрезали, да, но он дает какие-то действия,
Он
рекомендации,
предлагает
может, или-
рекомендации,
рекомендации,
да. И мы хотим посмотреть, насколько это бьется с нашей экспертизой, с теми рекомендациями, которые выдал наш аналитический отдел. То есть
Понял.
несколько человек сидели и думали, как реагировать, и мы попробовали закинуть каждый раз обфусцированный, обезличенный контекст
Ага.
в чат GPT, чтобы сказать, а что предложит он. Иногда совпадает, иногда нет, иногда вот в чем достоинство человека? Он всегда в контексте. Он, если это там специалист СОКа, представитель заказчика, он знает, где он находится, что его окружает, какая инфраструктура, какие люди, какие могут быть атаки, могут ли быть целевые атаки. У него есть какой-то бэкграунд ИБ или IT в зависимости от образования и всего остального. Он находится в контексте, как вот в таком пузыре. И по сравнению с искусственным интеллектом это достоинство, потому что там...
AI, it's actually an advantage because ChatGPT or any other similar models will have to be taught. Imagine you are like this, you are surrounded like by this. They will have to be guided because the ChatGPT will not be focused and they can propose absolutely unreasonable things which are impossible to implement or not feasible and not
Такого не бывает.
Прикольно. То есть
maybe it doesn't really happen. Yes.
выглядит для человека, для
I wonder how it looks for a user.
получается, какие-то плейбуки
So
сгенерированные.
it will be some generated playbooks, guidelines. Yes, playbooks are generated not by machine
То есть здесь мы все-таки
education, machine learning, but it will be
наши
using complex graphs.
исследовать инциденты, как
And we used our experience, we analyzed the cases,
сейчас существует,
and
чтобы
now ChatGPT works to maybe to have some question and answers for some small things about this vulnerability, tell me about this part of the code,
реагировать,
just to shorten the time for react and response.
понимать, что он делает, и
An expert will still have to understand what they do.
в принципе,
But on the other hand,
не знаю, Гугла под рукой, который
but this capability that you have a Google just by your side,
работу
learned and with the experience of billions of data points, then
Да, видимо,
it all comes down to the right question.
GPT пробовал.
Yeah, when I tried ChatGPT, I think it took me just a few days because in the end,
Это,
no matter what question I would ask,
ответ
the program would reply, yes, it's a good question, but
обратиться туда,
probably you should go to the expert and the expert will give you a better answer.
к администраторам систем или к
And
безопасности.
I hope that this kind of AI will not send us to administrators or to some outsourced companies which will help us. I hope that it will give some specific recommendations. Yes, true, some specific
действительно остались
double check that the host has these and these processes run.
и
Try to run forensics and try to multiply or add 2 and 2 and see how it's connected. So we spent a lot of time on this
мы развернули локально
training. We had an original copy, well, we had an original instance and we had a copy. And we actually included our
структурный отдел, чтобы они
colleagues. We had our infrastructure department. What ChatGPT can propose? What can they give in general in terms of improving the infrastructure, just to test it in different areas and different fields of responsibility?
Архитектура,
You mean the architecture, processes, logic? Yes, I understand. Sure. How do we organize the server segment even better? How do we protect even better?
еще лучше, еще
But how do you formulate it even better? How do you use? What's the language? How do you use it? What are the risks you want to mitigate? What are the risks you want to avoid? yes, we're speaking about risks, and we say that we think that it's possible for somebody to infiltrate like this, and they have this kind of means of protection. How can we play this game together?
Я злодей. И, в принципе, мы тестировали
And in general, we tested
не пару дней, не 2 недели,
for
довольно
a few days.
людей общались или общались локально, или
Just a couple of people were talking to each other just to understand how exactly
И мы поняли,
it's easier, how exactly should we frame the context. And we realized that more data is not necessarily better. The more you overload AI with some terminology, the harder it is for AI to find its course in this torrent of information. For them, it's really hard to understand. This is what regulator says, this is what ads say,
управление,
and then you have to have some manual control. And unfortunately, ChatGPT, yes, it gives some prompts, it's a guideline, maybe it's a first SOC line.
хост включен или
Так,
погашен.
так, так, погоди, первая линия сок уже, мне кажется,
The first line of SOC
ребята.
is intense. Should they worry about this in the first line of SOC? Yeah, they should, but not too much, because nobody will replace a human being.
Человеческое,
So the cost of human error is much cheaper than AI error, because human was trained until he was accepted to work. He was trained in his team, in his SOC. He's been told what can be done, what cannot be done. AI
завтра он взял и
today can react okay, but tomorrow will block everybody because they thought that it's a maximum security. Yes, absolutely. You're right.
Управленческие решения все-таки, наверное,
Yes, management decisions will be in hands of people, but does it make sense to retrain people
как раз
like specialists, analytics, and move in the context of training,
как-то задание,
teaching neural networks?
ты говоришь,
мое
имеет смысл?
личное мнение, что
Well, my personal opinion is that yes,
переключаться,
definitely,
чтобы
specialists,
давать контекст.
they need to give proper context. They need to explain properly. It's a good skill while communicating with the future clients in order to explain to the client what was happening and how to work with it. And second of all,
Начали заниматься совсем недавно.
we started doing it just recently, but in some projects, I use neural networks at home to solve some complicated objectives for which I don't have enough attention or something else. Maybe some routine
Запуск.
to create a list of launches, processes, containers in such a way so that we can use the potential of the home server system in order to be able to launch it.
Свой дата-центр, что ли?
So you have your own data center at home. Yeah, small one.
Девушечка,
So small neural network that works for you. Yes, it helps me to. Did you give it a name? Is there a name? No.
Достаточно хороша.
Блин, вообще,
It's insufficiently good.
как ты считаешь, мы
But you know, what do you think?
вопросу прокачивания
We have approached the topic of teaching people in which direction people have to be retrained and what is the threshold of entrance for people in the information security. Is it growing? Is it reducing? What happens right now? Well, I think that the entrance threshold for the SOC teams and for the teams that build them is reducing, because we have from different vendors and from those who are big players in the market like CR systems, we have a gigantic knowledge base and best practices. What should be discovered and how can we react to?
Что
Or
сделать?
maybe some hardening reactions. What should we do so that we wouldn't have any problems? So this knowledge base and these people who know how to do that, they're experts in this area. They are not just transferring this knowledge, they automate this knowledge. And what was happening 5 years ago in SOC and what's happening right now, this is big difference. Back then, you just write a script, you just have to write a query, connect to CM, you need to go to the host, you need to learn, or you need to Google Stack Overflow or something, ask a friend. And how should I get the list of open sessions? How should I learn this or that? Right now, it can be done in 2 clicks. Right now, this can be done. Somebody can do it instead of you. You have all the information available and you don't need to switch on your hands. You need to switch on your head to look at these various pieces of information and combine them into a common picture and make a certain decision. So I think that level of technical expertise right now, the entrance threshold have reduced a little bit. You don't have to write scripts, low code or no code interface, which allows you to do it without knowledge of programming languages. But on the other side,
больше инструментов,
we see much more tools of forecasting behavior and attack, and you have to think about probability and about how people should behave in this case. So I think this is a very creative area, and it is very difficult to retrain yourself for it. Well, at least it was difficult for me to switch from script writing to from platform writing, application writing into this activity
Ну вот что
in
интересно,
order to fantasize something like this. Well, you are saying that the entrance threshold is reducing, but don't you think that it
информационный безопасность.
weakens the sphere of informational security?
Человек видит некоторую верхушку.
So it happens that a person sees the top of an iceberg, which was given to him by some scripts, some automations, and neural networks. But how this person can understand whether this information is valid, who should he rely upon, on the technological information that was provided by somebody before him,
Этот процесс
or
провалидировать.
how this process can be validated.
Вот у меня такой страх возникает, да, что вот
And I have a fear
снижается, соответственно, все люди.
that the threshold is reducing and people get
многие могут.
lazy. People get lazy.
Ну, в общем, идея
So here's the top that I see, but you understand the idea. What do you think in this direction?
Теперь перед нами
Well,
стоит задача
yes,
просто
right now we have a task, not just to learn something and close the incident, but we need to close it with a clear conscience. We need to understand whether this criminal have left our perimeter. Have we removed all the consequences? Was it true that we seen? Was it really happening?
мы все лазейки, все места, которые, возможно, человек
Have we found all the places where this person was acting in? This is still an open question, but I still think that
разгружается от
as soon as the brain is being unloaded from some monotonous activity or made very complicated activity for searching of information, I think that enthusiasm disappears, because when you already have get around the
всё, что
infrastructure, you have looked around all the hosts, and then you go to something next. This story has to be closed. But right now, when it's going to be given to you, when you have, well, you don't spend your interest, you apply your energy for something more interesting. Because I think that, according to my opinion, people around me, they love what they do. They want to do something. They don't want to sit in one place. They want to move. Even if this is something monotonous and repetitive, they try to find ways to find something interesting and driving. And according to my opinion, right now, as soon as we can find more people for SOC, maybe they are not so technically educated, but they have burning eyes and they want to learn. And instead of searching for some signs of manual work, they have to build hypotheses. They have to play detectives. And I think this will help people to pull for other strings.
энергии.
So we are redirecting energy from the technical routine into a fantasy, creativity, and something like that, something new. And according to your observations, people almost don't burn out. Yeah, people don't burn out as much. It becomes a quest, it becomes a game for them where they have to collect everything and get a proper result.
никто,
Of course.
не
Nobody except for SOC will not be able to tell you about the final conclusion. So that you have achieved that as a researcher in real life, you will have to make a decision in the end run. And maybe it's going to be the wrong decision, but we are learning on our own mistakes. And at least
как систему
we can use the system of decision-making support and EML as well. So all these cases can be downloaded in a certain database, and we can say, okay, system, can you tell me please which decisions I was making more often? In which cases did it happen? What should I rely upon? And in the future, maybe in 6 months, maybe in 1 year, we will be able to teach the artificial intelligence in such a way so that it would propose us certain steps and connections by itself. So we have to fill this database with a certain context, attributes, some list of values in order to be able to rely upon something.
Развитие. А вот интересно.
So technological foundation for future development. But how will you take into consideration some individual peculiarities of other infrastructures, other companies, other infrastructures? Because everything happens differently. Because there are some common points and they are different and they are similar for everybody, but there are certain peculiarities. How should we deal with these peculiarities? How should we take them in consideration? Or maybe we learn just on common points, on commonalities. Well, we decided to create the formula of dynamic creation of playbook and reaction to the investigations. We took the best stages for incidents, and then we decided to take as a given the infrastructure, because it's different everywhere and it's continuously different, client today and client tomorrow. These could be two different infrastructures because they moved, they changed their mind, they bought something, they sold something, and the system should be tuned up for this. So in our new platform of incident management orchestration, we've tried to define these dynamics. So right now you have to choose certain playbooks, not like 2 years ago after the pilot, okay, go there, do 1, 2, 3, but system understands, okay, right now you have to enrich the data. What do we have in the infrastructure? Or why do you have this check mark on? Why do you have these rights and why don't you have these rights? What are the key points for objects and contexts? This is a topic of the letter, or maybe we work with a leakage of NSD, or do we work with DSP? We have a lot of hosts. Can they be scanned? Or maybe they cannot be scanned. So maybe it's a brute forcing of the passport, or maybe this is a very strange story with new rights and rules and adding new people. And system, every time we'll look at the results of this audit and we'll see what else can be done today, what is available today, what is available right now for the analytic of the second level, and something that should not be strictly hard-coded. Yesterday, without having an opportunity of blocking and isolating the hosts, and tomorrow client have understood that, well, it's not a problem. Let's stop everything, and then afterwards we'll clear it out. And next day you come, you have a new tool set, some new possibilities to hold it and disclose it. Well, if it's not going to work, if you will have a bad audit, and if the client or the client's team, if they don't know what is happening with them, unfortunately, like that.
И вот,
Tasks, objectives, etc., etc. Of course, formulation of the objective is problematic. Very often we see that people cannot formulate it. Another interesting topic here is that
по поводу переобучения.
about retraining. Do you retrain, or this can be done by the client himself? How does it work? I don't know how will this be, but in theory, technically, it is possible. We have retrained the model by ourselves, and the local one that we have installed, we have conducted cyber exercise for them, which is given for the newbies in. So we receive this data, these incidents, for example, the launch of the malicious code. This is how it was proliferating, and this is what was done with it. So the context like this. So I think if the client will get access to this, they, in the same way, will be able to communicate with this model, because there are no technical obstacles in this area. My job is the expertise and techniques. How it's going to be done license-wise, I don't know.
Тема интересна.
I understand it's an interesting topic. It has a lot of future inside of it, and I'm glad that we talked about it with you. It's a very interesting fantasy. It's fantastic. It's a driver. And I hope
Логическое будущее.
that we are going to have beautiful technological advance. It's Yeva Bilyayeva
Vision,
from Security Vision Company, the head of development department.
всего вам хорошего.
Thank you very much, Eva.
Пока.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.